All right. So is another thing that I do believe you guys cannot do, like most of you cannot do. That or maybe it's just not 100% correct 100% of the time. If it's not correct 100% of the time, then you're missing certain things. So we're going to talk about negative numbers, or in general, the idea why people cannot do it. So let's just dive in. So when we deal with negative numbers, it's always about adding or subtracting certain things, and it gets really confusing. Like, oh, I'm adding 5 over here versus I'm subtracting 10 over there. We really need to look into what it really means when we talk about adding or subtracting in math. So let's go back to the very basic idea of adding and subtracting. Everyone should be able to do 2 plus, I don't know, 2 plus 2. Okay, we all know that it's going to be equal to 4. But in my mind, when I think about adding, it's maybe a little bit different. It's not procedure, it's actually a movement of numbers. So go back to your number line. Everything starts with 0. Okay, without number line, we have no math. So that's what we mean by adding 2. So we started with 2. All right, adding 2, this procedure called plus 2 or adding 2 means you are moving to the right 2 times. So this whole thing is moving, it's going to be a pain to write this, moving to the right 2 times. So once you started with 2, that's where they tell you where you start. You're moving 2 times. Of course, you ended up with 4. So visually, that's what it means. You are adding. That means you're moving to the right. Okay, so that is going to be very useful later on. Let's say like algebra 1. We talk about slope a lot, like rise over run, like the moving motion basically is based on this. Why are we talking about, oh, the run is always running to the right, the number of times. Okay, so adding, starting from now on, also have this picture in your mind, is actually moving to the right, the number of times. Okay, so let's look into another scenario. Let's say we start with 2 again, but this time we're going to subtract 5. So hopefully without a calculator we can do it. 2 minus 5, it should be negative 3. And I'll show you visually what it means. Okay, so we start with 0. That's where it starts. In the beginning, always have the 0 in the middle. I start with 2. Subtract 5. This subtracts basically means left 5 times. So we're moving to the left 5 times. So we start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 1, 0, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. So we ended up with a negative 3. With this basic example, it should be very easy to comprehend what it means by that. However, when we get into negative numbers, then different combination of numbers can create more problems, and we are going to dive into it very, very soon. So let's pick 2 numbers that I like. I like 5 and 15. Okay, I like 5 and 15. We can actually think of all the combination that ended up with 5 and 15. So let's just write off that. We can start with 5. We can add 10 to it. That's the easiest one. Next one, 5 minus 10. Okay, I'm going to show you all the combination there is. And then let's gonna switch the 5 to negative 5. So we have negative 5 plus 10. Negative 5 minus 10. and then we are going to keep the 5. So we have plus negative 10, 5 minus negative 10. Am I missing anything? Of course, it's the negative 5 and negative 10 combination. Negative 5 plus negative 10, and then negative 5 minus a negative 10. I'm pretty sure I have everything already. It's just add or subtract at the end of the day. So we're going to look into each individual case. All right. So we'll just look at the very first one. They are the easiest example out there. Let's make it big. All right. Let's make it big. So this one is very easy. I know that it's going to be equal to 15. So basically it's from 5. All right. I'm just going to move 10 space. This is telling me that I'm going to move 10 space, or 10 numbers to the right. So we're going to end up with 15. This one, 5 minus 10, is going to be negative 5. And the reason for that is we're going to start with 5. We're going to move 10 space over there. That's subtract 10 minus 10. That's what it means. So we are ending up with negative 5. The rest of that is just like counting. Okay, can we count all of these dots? So this one is, I don't think we have too much problem with it. So let's look into the other case. This can sometimes be a little bit more confusing because, okay, I have 5 plus a negative 10. 5 plus a negative 10. So I'm basically saying that I'm trying to read this statement. I'm trying to make sense of this. Okay, I shouldn't use red again. Sorry. Let's make it pink, shall we? Yeah, we are trying to make sense of this statement. It's saying that I'm going to move to the right because this is telling me I'm going to move to the right for a negative 10 space. So I'm moving to the right at the same time I'm moving to the left. So this is right, this is left. Okay. So there are a couple of ways to do it. Visually is going to be tricky. What I would do is try to remember, if you have a plus, you have a minus. If the signs are opposite, this sign is going to turn into a negative. It's going to turn into a subtract. Negative minus subtract, they're the same thing. Please don't have me talk about it again. Minus, subtract, negative, they're all the same thing. So 5 plus or minus is going to be a minus 10. So with that conversion, it basically gone back to the beginning, the question we had from the first page. So it's 5 minus 10, it starts with 5. I'm going that way for 10, so I have a negative 5. All right? So we're going to use the same idea for this. These two, okay, I'm just looking at the sign over here. Subtract, subtract. 2 negative is going to turn into positive, so it ended up with just simply 5 plus 10. It ended up with the same question we had before, I think. All right. So that's one of the tricks that I think a lot of us get really confused when we are doing add or subtract of numbers. So this is look at the sign and change, and so you'll know which operation you're dealing with. Okay. So let's look at the other example. We actually have this scenario. I'm pretty sure about that. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to create a new page. Okay, this thing. So I have a negative 5 plus 10. So negative 5 plus 10, visually, this is this. I start with negative 5. I'm going to go 10 that way. Obviously, it's going to be ending up with 5 if you count it. With a question like this, there are a couple of ways to do it. One way is really just doing the calculation or just counting it another way, what I would normally do, because adding and subtracting, you can actually switch these two numbers. So I'm going to put the 10 to go first. I'm going to put this -5 at the back. So basically, after this step, after you switch it, 10 minus 5 is going to be 5. All right. So it's up to you, whichever way you like. I normally would do this. I would switch it, and I know that there are lots of different things that seemingly will create a problem. But if you do enough practice, you should be able to figure it out. So you may need some practice. This one. Now, this -5 minus 10. A lot of students having problems with this. You are, for some odd reason, you're trying to go to the right, but we don't have that, right? Subtract. Subtract is telling you to go to the left. You're going to the left. So from here, you're going to the left. You're going to be going deeper to the negative system. So obviously, this number ended up with has to be a negative number. And these two, you just add the number together, 15. All right. So you keep the negative, you add those numbers together. I would say really try not to remember those scales. Try to understand the basic mechanism, why something is going left, why something is going right. That should be the case. All right, we are getting to the last case. I'm talking really fast because I can only do 15 minutes of this because I'm cheap. I don't feel like buying it. And so everything has to be in a 15-minute section. I'm pretty sure that's how long you can bear with this anyway. So let's put the equal sign. So in this scenario, see this again, okay? So this is not by visual, it's not doing it visually. You're just looking at that two signs. That two signs is, kind of odd. If you read this, -5 plus -10, that plus minus, it sounds odd even when you're reading it. You're just gonna go and look at these two signs. Let's figure it out what that means. Plus and minus means subtract. Okay, so -5 plus or minus is a subtract. It's going to be 10. So we ended up with -5, -10. Just like the previous example, it's going to be subtract, adding these two numbers, 15. -5 minus -10. Reading it sounds odd. Negative, negative, positive. So it's going to be -5 turns into plus 10 is going to be swapping this 10 minus 5, 5. Same exact question we had before. So you can, if you look at these few slides over and over again, you will be able to spot that, a certain scenario, it will come back to an easier question. And just to wrap this up, just in case if you do not know, the whole list of, when I do this, I turn that to subtract. Hopefully you'll be able to remember that. If you have two signs sitting right next to each other, if it's plus plus, it's going to be a plus. If it's two subtracts, like subtract a negative or subtract, it's going to turn to a plus. So if two signs are the same, it's going to be a plus. Alternatively, if you have like a plus and minus sitting right next to each other, it's going to be a subtract plus, is going to be a subtract. And so this is basically the basic skill for this. And that's how I got all of this turned into a minus. That's how I got this into a minus, how I got this into a plus. That's pretty much about it. It's a very basic idea. And lots of students struggle with the subtract, like this example where over here, subtract. A lot of people having problems. So it's about time. So bye for now.